Welcome back to Daily Visa News. Today we will focus on a report that's making headlines across both the United Kingdom and India. The UK has long been seen as a land of hope and opportunity, a place where dreams of world-class education, career advancement and new beginnings could take shape. For decades, the bond between India and Britain has been defined not only by history, but also by the continuous flow of students, professionals, and families seeking to carve out a future here. But recent events suggest that this historical relationship is entering troubled waters. Over 2,700 Indians have been detained in the last year alone for breaches of UK immigration rules. That's more than a 100% increase compared with the previous year. And alongside those stark figures, rising visa cancellations, tighter restrictions, and record numbers of voluntary exits are painting a sobering picture. What is driving this growing crackdown? Why are so many Indians facing detention or finding their visas revoked? And more importantly, is the dream of building a life in the United Kingdom fading for thousands of Indian nationals? To begin, let's look at one incident that captured these tensions in sharp focus. Immigration enforcement officers carried out coordinated factory raids in the city of Leicester. The outcome? 38 Indian nationals detained, 9 of them women. The majority had overstayed their visas. 7 had entered the UK illegally, bypassing checks entirely. 1 was even caught breaching specific conditions of their visa by working in a job they weren't authorised to take. Out of those 38 individuals, 19 were taken directly into immigration detention centres pending removal, while the other 20 were released under strict reporting orders to the Home Office as their cases move forward. On the surface, one might call this just a straightforward case of law enforcement. But the truth is, these raids are far from isolated. They are the tip of the iceberg of a much larger and more systematic crackdown on migration, one that has disproportionately affected Indian nationals. According to official Home Office statistics, the year ending June 2025 recorded an astonishing rise in detention rates. Over 2,715 Indians found themselves confined in UK immigration facilities for various breaches. To put this in perspective, that's a 108% jump within just 1 year. In other words, the number of Indian nationals detained in Britain has more than doubled. For those affected, detention is not just about loss of freedom. It comes with legal uncertainty, mental distress, and a complete disruption of one's life plans. While many are eventually released on bail, the damage, financial, emotional, and social, often lingers. Families are torn apart, students miss classes, and professionals suddenly lose not only employment but also their future prospects. So why are we seeing such a surge? The truth is, the rise in detentions is not random. It reflects a deliberate and tougher stance from the UK government. Ministers have been explicit. Legal migration levels must come down, and enforcement of immigration rules must be stricter than ever. Britain's Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has been at the front of this campaign. Citing public pressure, economic strain, and concerns about housing and infrastructure, her office has reaffirmed that legal migration must be brought back under control. For Indian nationals, who have historically been the largest demographic of skilled worker visa holders and a leading group among international students, this tightening approach places them squarely in the spotlight. Traditionally, students from India have formed a cornerstone of Britain's international education system. Their tuition fees sustain universities, their innovation drives research, and their presence enriches campus culture across the country. But now, the numbers tell a more concerning story. Study visa grants to Indians have fallen sharply. In the year ending June 2025, study visas for Indian students fell 11%, down to just under 100,000. Other reports show an even greater fall, from 159,000 in 2023 to just 92,000 a year later, a dramatic 42% drop. So, what is causing this decline? Several policy changes are central here. Since January 2024, most international students are no longer permitted to bring dependents such as spouses or children except in limited circumstances. This has been a crushing blow, particularly for postgraduates, many of whom prefer to study abroad with their families. The permanent increase in financial thresholds has also raised the bar on proof of funds. Students must now show significantly greater savings to even qualify. Added to this, the immigration health surcharge rose by 65%, making the overall cost of studying in Britain near prohibitive for many middle-class Indian families. The numbers back up this shift. Applications for student-dependent visas plummeted by 86% in just 1 year. To put it bluntly, the UK is no longer the financially viable option it once was for thousands of aspiring Indian students. But it's not just students who are being affected. Indian professionals, especially in healthcare and IT, are also feeling locked out by the evolving visa regime. Traditionally, the skilled worker route was a popular pathway for Indians. In 2024, about 6,000 Indians a month applied successfully under this category. By mid-2025, that number has slumped to around 4,900 monthly applications, an 18% decline. The steepest fall, however, is in the category where Indians played the most critical role: health and care worker visas. In August 2023, 18,300 Indians applied in this category. By July 2025, only 1,300 applications were submitted. That's a collapse of 93%. These positions were once welcomed because they filled vital gaps in the NHS. Today, government changes, especially the restriction on overseas recruitment, for many care roles have cut off what was once an essential lifeline for both employers and applicants. These stricter conditions are creating ripple effects across society. Anecdotal evidence combined with government migration data paints a clear picture. More Indians are now choosing or being forced to return home. In 2024 alone, 58,000 Indians left the United Kingdom. Of these, 37,000 were international students and around 18,000 were skilled workers. That makes Indians the single largest group of non-EU nationals to depart from Britain that year. Many of these departures can be directly linked to the promise of the post-study work visa, which had once been a major attraction. Students arriving between 2021 and 2022 viewed this route as a bridge to long-term residency. But with policies shifting, the path to settlement has become uncertain, and many feel they have no choice but to go back home. So, what are the broader consequences of this migration shift? UK universities, under strain, British universities have grown dependent on international tuition fees, especially from India. A steep drop in student numbers could trigger funding gaps, course closures, and even financial instability for some institutions. Healthcare sector shortages at the same time, the health sector may face the brunt of worker application declines. For years, Indian professionals have been the backbone of NHS recruitment drives. With their absence, shortages in care roles may deepen. Perception in India, perhaps most importantly, the UK's reputation among aspiring Indian migrants is shifting. Where once the country was portrayed as a reliable springboard to success, it is now increasingly seen as a risky destination with moving goalposts and unpredictable rules. Let's not forget that behind each of these statistics lies a personal story. A student who sold family property to fund their education, only to see their visa hopes dashed. A care worker who left their children in India to support the NHS, only to face policy reversals that brought their own future into question. An overstayer, left vulnerable and undocumented, navigating fear and uncertainty. The picture is one of ambitious people encountering barriers they never expected, ambitions colliding with policy shifts. And this is why the question many Indians are now asking is haunting. Is the UK dream over? All signs point to more restrictions, not fewer. The British government has tied its immigration policy to political credibility and public concerns about net migration. As long as that remains the case, students, job seekers, and families from India may face an increasingly uphill struggle. The key issue now is whether this harder stance will permanently damage the UK's ability to attract the talent and diversity it has historically thrived upon. Will universities struggle without international students? will hospitals suffer without Indian doctors and carers? And will Britain lose goodwill from one of its oldest and closest Commonwealth partners? These are questions policymakers in Westminster must answer. But for those dreaming of their future in Britain, the answers feel increasingly bleak. So, as we step back and assess the numbers, one truth becomes clear. This is not just a debate about visas and paperwork. It's a human story of determination, of hardship, and of shifting dreams. Over 2,700 Indians detained, dozens of visas cancelled daily, tens of thousands leaving the UK altogether. The ripple effects are being felt across campuses, workplaces, and families alike. Will Britain find a balance between controlling migration and nurturing opportunity? Or is this truly the end of the so-called UK dream for India's aspiring bright minds and hard workers? That's what we'll continue to follow closely here on Daily Visa News. If you've been affected by these changes or know someone who has, we'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Share your experiences, your challenges, and your hopes for what comes next. And as always, for the latest insights and updates on global visa and migration issues, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and click the notification bell so you never miss another important update